Mhm. What up, guys? Thanks for coming to the channel. I'm pretty sure that you clicked on this video simply because you care about the health of Sparking Zero as a game. Now, this is the predecessor of Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and the rest of the series, and a lot of us have loved that game, so we were really excited for Sparking Zero. And even though the game is doing extremely well, and the game itself is pretty good, it's pretty polished in certain areas, there are certain issues that are pretty glaring, at least when it comes to some of the mechanics, because it deviates from Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and what made that game fun, and not just for a short term but for a very long time. So we're going to get into some of these issues. And there's really only just the main two I'm going to focus on today. And these two are how quickly skill count charges as well as super counter. These two things fundamentally change the game from the previous iteration. And in these next couple of clips I'm about to show you, I can go over exactly why. So what you notice in this next clip is that really this encounter doesn't take all that much time at all. It really takes, I think, around 28 seconds to complete the full encounter before we actually address the meta because of what's going on with skill count charge as well as super counter. If you notice, we're just having normal engagement. Nothing much is happening. But here, in just one little super counter, we enter the Vanish Wars that everyone infamously does not like. Now, because of these Vanish Wars, we just enter a state where we're pretty much locked just building skill counter. And all this really does is dissolve into just a state in which one person gets off sparking, which I do, and the other person tries to get into sparking or insta sparking. Insta sparking as a mechanic isn't really the main issue. It's just the fact that within 30 seconds of the match, we've already seen that we've already gotten to the point we are already using insta sparking, which is a huge problem. And this is honestly a super cheesy way to play this game that developed into a meta because of how effective it is. One person tries to engage in combat, the other person mashes up square to get into super counter. They enter Vanish Wars, and whoever comes up on top with enough time can pull out Insta Sparking and then have advantage after that. That's not why we like Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and that's definitely why we don't like Sparking Zero. It's because we're not engaging with the rest of the combat in this game. There's so many good combos, combo strings, flashy defensive mechanics, movement that we could really have fun utilizing when we are fighting in this game. But no one gets to see it because of this meta strategy. This is not why we like this game, and this is something that has to go, and it started with one super counter. Now, do I hate Super Counter? No. I just believe they're way too easy to pull off compared to the other or the older game, Budokai Tenkaichi 3. And the reason why they're too easy is because they're just a spammable way of doing defense. In this clip, you'll see it slow down that this is just a bad example of Super Counter. Because the person is obviously just spamming up square when you're using classic controls because he was able in a barrage of strike attacks able to get off super counter. And that's led to these Vanish Wars that we're about to continue. That's the problem with super counters that I do have, but they're also good examples of super counter. Now, here presented by my opponent Goku Black, we see a very good example of super counter. And the reason being is that you can see him actually timing up super counter instead of just spamming up square during this basic combo. Because during my step in, which is a timed attack with timing, you notice he then hits the super counter. Now, that's a good example of super counter because it actually rewards skill and timing, and that's why we love this game. The defensive mechanisms in this game are supposed to be flashy, and feel rewarding, not something that's just easy to pull off. And with super counter being so prominent, we forget that Vanish is actually supposed to be the primary defensive action in this game. A lot of these combos that people are stuck in are actually vanishable, and instead we tend to spam up square, which is our super counter. Now look at this Gogeta during this exchange. Here is a rolling hammer. That's actually a vanishable attack. Now, I'm not saying all these attacks are super easy to vanish, but I'm fully charging them, giving enough time to react. Here, another ground slash is about to happen. Boom. This is also a vanishable attack, but he's still probably spamming up square during this exchange, and also here during this explosive wave combo. That's also vanishable as well. Into the follow up, which this strike is vanishable. And we're forgetting that Vanish is such a core part of the game that requires timing. But we end up getting stuck in the mindset of only using super counters. Like, look at this little ground slash loop that I'm stuck in that's super easy to get out of. And my brain cells finally awaken after the forced ground slash. But that's what happens when we only rely on super counters. And I guess all of this together really makes some of the other more annoying mechanics to this game exasperated. Because look at Vegito, for instance. Vegito gets his skill counter so quickly during this exchange, whether he's getting beaten up. And it only makes it so that the next time you're engaging him in neutral, he has advantage because of after him strike. Now, in the old game, they had certain mechanisms such as like I think it was key sickness, which would make it so he pretty much couldn't charge key during this. But in this game, he really doesn't have a drawback to using this, and with how quickly skill counter charges, he it has the liberty to keep on using this. Now, what's funny is that we used to play games on our couches back then over our friend's house, so a tactic like this isn't something that you would actually expect to see simply because you'd tell that dude to get off your couch if he decided to keep playing like that. And so we kind of we always set our own rules to make the game as fair as possible. But of course, with it being online and most people just kind of playing like trash and just wanting to win, even though it's as cheesy as possible, this is what we end up with. And then this is really not how the game's like how we had fun playing the game. But of course, this is how when people want to reach Z rank, they're gonna try to win by any means possible, even though it's cheesy and doesn't have much merit to it at all. Now, a lot of people have voiced their own grievances with the games when it comes to the character balancing. But really, the reason why we like Budokai Tenkaichi 3 as well as Sparking Zero is that certain characters feel different, and play better than other characters. I don't expect Krillin to have the same success rate as Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta or Jiren for that matter. We want them to feel strong, but the problem is what I just outlined with skill count definitely charging too fast and super counter being too prominent because you don't actually get to interact with the fun part of the game, which is the fighting. Going into an ultimate only puts you into a cutscene that you have to watch while you take a ton of damage, and then super counter breaks a combo that a lot of times you feel shouldn't have even been broken, especially when you won your neutral engagement. These are the main issues with the games that we are really seeing as of now. And I've actually seen some of them even come up with certain videos. Like I remember Asura 6 came up with a video about super counters, and I think it might be a little harder for him to articulate what the reason is, but he's on the right track. Like realistically speaking, for a game like this, people do complain about back shots, but you can get out of back shots because in order for somebody to extend a combo, they have to perform a move that's vanishable. And that's how it's always worked. And that's the main mechanic of the game, but vanishing actually takes timing, whereas super counters in its current state does not. Now, I've heard that the old game super counter was frame 1 and it had like a 17 frame lockout window if you were gonna try to input that again to super counter, what made it so that more people were trying to rely simply on watching out for certain combo strings and anticipating a time in which to vanish. Tymir, who's also a really awesome player at the game, he's on PC, super good at the game. He made an opposing video saying that it's not much of a big deal. He actually knows timing for super counter and during interactions, but at the same time, he and even some other of the really high ranking guys, they'll still spam super counter because there's no reason not to in order to get out of combos. And that's really the reason we're seeing so many Vanish Wars. I remember playing this game with my friend on the PS2, and we got so good at the game, we were trying to avoid Vanish Wars at all costs. Me especially, because I would usually try to conserve my key for special attacks after the end of a combo, and he was more about the hands, I guess. So if I somehow got into a Vanish War with him, then I'm just draining all my key. And in that game, the person with the least amount of key would actually win the engagement, which was kind of funny. And that kind of made sense. And we were able to avoid Vanish Wars a lot of the time because we weren't getting into super counters so much. And super counters literally start a Vanish War in this game. A lot of times, Vanish Wars aren't started without that mechanic being done. But that's all for this video. I think I've said enough. Maybe I'll make another one addressing it further. Um, Please go in the comment section and maybe express some of your views on it, say where I'm wrong, and that's pretty much it. Thanks.